What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, joined once again by my guy Morgan Cannon, and this is your go-to place for all things Lions related. That includes news, updates, and like what we're going to be doing today, some analysis about the Chicago Bears, who the Lions will be playing this week on Thanksgiving. It's a get-back game because honestly, Morgan, I had honestly forgotten that the last time that the Lions played the Bears, we lost. So this is a chance to kind of, redo that game and actually get a leg up on the Bears as the Lions look to continue their winning ways. Lions have currently won 9 straight with a record of 10-1. Bears, unfortunately, going the opposite direction, losing their last few games and currently sitting at, I believe, 4-7 on the season, losing a heartbreaker to the Vikings just last week. Really played the Vikings pretty tough down the stretch, but a field goal in overtime kind of put them away. So I'm sure they're looking to get back in the win column, but the Lions are obviously, like I said, looking to keep their winning ways going. What are your overall thoughts when it comes down to this matchup? Obviously, the Bears haven't looked great this year, but from just what you've been able to see, read, hear about the Bears so far, what have been your overall impressions to this point?
They're playing worse than their record. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're better than they're better than their record indicates, in my opinion. Like you guys know, I'm a Bears hater, man. Like that fan base does nothing for me. But they're talented, right? Like the defense should be better. We're going to get into some of their issues, but they're 4-7. They actually have a positive point differential. Obviously that only means so much, but a positive 4. They are 0-4 on the road this year, so it's a rookie quarterback, and he's had his struggles. We're going to get into that too. So he's obviously very talented. He went number 1 overall for a reason, and you see that too at times when you watch him both live and then when you watch the tape too. He's a good player, man. Like he's got tools that can work in this league. But as we know, there's a lot that goes into whether a quarterback is successful or not. Like there's so much context around it. And I think most people are hip to that now. Like back in the day, everyone's like bust. I'm like, well, yes, it didn't work, but could it have worked elsewhere if the organization, like if someone, like if the Lions were to draft a quarterback, or when they do, whenever that day comes, it's going to be a favorable situation because you have the structure in place. And I'm kind of on my soapbox here, but like from Sheila Hamp to Brad Holmes to Dan Campbell, like the foundation is in place and they've got a program built here. But when some of these really talented guys, like, and that's a shot, it is a shot at the Bears organization. They just can't get their stuff in line, man. Like whether it's the coach or the GM just doing silly stuff. I don't know. But we'll get into it here. And the Bears, my overall thought, like they're not good in several places that could really be a problem against the Lions, including run defense. So that's kind of how I feel. But what about you? I'd love to get a dub on Thanksgiving, man. It's been since 2016. That is too long.
No, I'm right there with you on that point. Like I absolutely would love to be able to enjoy my Thanksgiving meal.
Please.
With a win as well. Like it would just make all the food taste so much better. I don't have to eat it with like tears streaming down my face. Yeah. Exactly.
I've taken so many sad naps these last several years. I just like come home, like for y'all that are newer to the channel, like I'm not going this year. I actually gave my tickets to a friend, sold them. But come home from the game, I'm like I'm a little mad. I just eat my pain away and then I just go to sleep. That's been typically and then I wake up and I'm like, what time is it? And then the Cowboys are typically on TV and I'm like, oh God,
Yeah, nobody wants to watch that. That's usually the best time to take a nap though, because usually they play like in the middle of the day.
True.
But no, like I'm very much with you in terms of like I think the Bears are worse than their record indicates. Like them having 4 wins. Listen, they should have like 2 fewer, right? I'm not gonna say like it should be that bad, but I do think like 2 fewer wins, like them beating Tennessee. Like they beat Tennessee who looked horrible week 1, so it really was just like who's more terrible. And it was just like and the Bears just kind of inked it out. You look at the Rams game, like, considering what the Rams were, like the type of shape they were in at the time that they played them, that you do that game over now, Bears get like blown out. Like it's not even close. And then you probably do beat Carolina and you beat Jacksonville because they are also terrible. Like that's how I view the Bears. And it's not trying to be like mean about it or trying to be like a hater or just like being a Lions fan, but it's like that's just in watching them play. I have yet to turn on a game that they've been playing and been like, oh, like, no, this team is better than they actually look. Like there's a lot of things that are wrong with this team. And a lot of it does unfortunately start on the offensive end. And a lot of it does start with Caleb Williams, who we're going to talk about today. But at the same time, like, again, to not be a hater, there are also the moments that you indicated as well. Like, he has those flashes that make you aware, like, definitely hit on like why the Bears drafted him first overall, why he was the number one quarterback coming into this draft class. But there's also the things that a number of people pointed out about, like, hey, these are some deficiencies that he has in his game. Those show up too. I think if you were to ask any Bears fan, like, they would honestly tell you like they're disappointed. And I think even as a Lions fan, I'm somewhat disappointed because I thought the Bears would be um a bigger challenge to the rest of the league. Like, when you look at the weapons that they have offensively, with Caleb Williams, being the orchestrator, and you have Keenan Allen, you have DJ Moore, you have a Rome Odunze, you have a DeAndre Swift and a Cole Kmet. Like, you have enough offensive firepower to really like go toe to toe with a number of players or with a number of teams. But I think it does lend itself to the other thing that you mentioned. It's that other aspect of it. And I think with the Bears, it's what's been plaguing the Bears for the last couple seasons: coaching and preparation and like, just scheming up a game plan that has been the downfall of the Bears the last few seasons.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at with, like, they can't get their stuff to line up, right? Like, and Caleb, we talked about it. Caleb Williams is talented, but just offensively, everything has looked clunky. A lot of it has to deal with the fact that they can't protect him. They haven't been good at running the ball. That also explains why the Bears have been a pretty bad football team. Like, they can't run the ball really effectively, and they are bad at stopping the run. They're 30 in run defense, DVOA. So down there towards the bottom of the barrel. And that's obviously going to be a problem with the, like, playing against the Lions, dinged up offensive line or not, right? Like, it's going to be some tough sledding. So yeah, they should be better. That's kind of, I guess, what my thought process is. The talent is there, but to your point, I do agree with, when you turn the TV on, you're like, at no point are you like, oh yeah, this is a good football team. Like, they should have won the other day. Was it the Vikings game?
Yeah.
Where they should have won, and then the kick got blocked because they just completely like, golly, like,
Yeah, you kind of can't get out of your own way. And I think
Packers. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that was the game. Well, no, I think they had a kick blocked against the Vikings too, though.
I'd be surprised.
So it's just like, but there's things about the Bears that I think, again, you're hearing a lot of like sports commentators say it whenever they start talking about the Bears, like they're finding new and creative ways to lose games. And that's saying something coming from Lions fans, because like I feel like there were a number of seasons where we've created that exact same narrative. So it's, it's not necessarily throwing stones at a glass house. Like, no, we used to live in that house. We know exactly the layout of that house.
Residence. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So with that said, Morgan, let's go ahead and jump into the film, because that's what everybody's here and they want to kind of get to know and see what we want to point out about the Bears. And so let's start out on a positive note, because it's going to be a roller coaster the rest of this video. But let's start out on a positive note, looking at the Bears defense, which I think, to your point as well, I think they are a very good defense, especially when you look at how they've been playing so far in the red zone. They have been one of the top teams defensively in the red zone. And this is a play that they made last week against the Vikings on the 1 yard line. Really, this is, you would think this would be a go ahead touchdown with Adam Jones in the backfield, but Jonathan Owens gets in there, gets a great punch out, is able to not just force the fumble, but recover it as well. These are things that the Lions are going to have to be mindful of. You can't get lazy once you get to the red zone.
Yeah, ball security, because they'll try to force turnovers. Like, as bad as they've been up front and stopping the run, the secondary is good. It's like Jalen Johnson, for my money, is probably like the best corner in football. Really, really good player. I like Bayard and Owens at safety. Like, they have some good versatility back there. They can do a lot of different things, and it's a good play. So he's backfilling like around the like formation almost, because of how like things are shaping out with the blocking, and just a good job of punching. This is like a Brian Branch play, well, like a Peanut Tillman play if we're talking about like the OG. If y'all know Charles Tillman, that means you're old. But yeah, good play.
Yeah, and so I think, like, again, the Lions have been very good in the red zone so far this year, outside of like what, week 2 against Tampa. Like, ever since that game, they've gotten much better at converting these types of plays in the red zone. And with them having so many different weapons to kind of hit you with, whether it's, Monty, whether it's Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, they have so many different ways that they can get into the end zone. But again, you see plays like this, you see, like, how the Bears have been playing in the red zone. It's just something that you have to stay mindful of.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on for the audience is, so again, you just said it a minute ago, they have a very good secondary. And it's not just Jalen Johnson, it's not just Tyreek Stevens, it's not just Kevin Byard. Like a lot of teams, Morgan, like to take their number one receiver and try to like put them in the slot and try to find those mismatches. Minnesota tried to do that last week in a play like this. And Kyler Gordon is, again, a very good quality nickel corner. That isn't going to give your star receiver a day off just because they decided to move into the slot.
Yeah, and you can see what Minnesota is probably trying to do here. They're trying to move Justin Jefferson away from Jalen Johnson. Man, it's a lot of J's. It looks like the Bears are in like a cover two shell here, and just this is just a really good play by Kyler Gordon, opening his hips, like getting his eyes on the quarterback, and then finding the football. Like this is shoot. If it was a pick, that's the only thing that could have made this play better. But either way, heck of a play.
Yeah, this is again, this is teach tape. If you're a DB's coach, if you're someone
Perfect feet.
studying to be corner, like understanding that, like, yes, you have to get eyes on your man. You have to know where your man is going, but at the same time, you also can't forget your responsibility, which I think Kyler Gordon does very well here. He understands the depth that he's supposed to have, and he also recognizes like he's still in zone. So eventually, he has to get his eyes back around to the quarterback because it does no good for him to just have his back, to Sam Darnold in this situation. Not saying that Sam Darnold like completes this play if Kyler Gordon's back is to him, but it's easier for Justin Jefferson to make a play over Kyler Gordon if his eyes aren't back towards the quarterback.
Yeah, and that's what quarterbacks are wanting in this situation. Like they want to throw the ball to to a spot when the defense has their back toward them, because that's how you're able to fit in some of these tight window throws against zone coverage. But here, like you said, you getting your eyes on it like that, and they're an opportunistic defense, like getting their hands on the ball, like punching it out, interceptions. It's a good secondary for like as much as they struggle against on the ground. They're good defense in the back end.
Yeah, and we also got to talk about Montez Sweat. Obviously, we don't have like film of Montez Sweat in this film session, but that's another obviously a difference maker on that defense that the Lions are going to have to contend with, whether it's Penei Sewell or Taylor Decker. Montez Sweat wrecked a number of games, playing against the Lions last year once he got onto this team. So it's one of those things that, again, the Lions are going to have to make sure that they're doing their due diligence in accounting for him and understanding how they want to, like, again, get their passing attack to unfold, because there's going to be tough matchups on the outside, and you're going to have to worry about that defensive line as well, trying to get after Jared Goff. So,
especially if Decker can't go at left tackle, which is we're recording this Tuesday evening, and he did not practice again today. So definitely something to keep an eye out, Wednesday and going into the game on Thursday, because we'll see what they shake out there. Part of me is like, is there another option? Like Dan Skipper's a good guy and all, but man, it's rough out there.
mm-hmm.
When you're asking him to play 70 snaps. It's a tough ask.
No, and trust me, I agree. And I think this is where the Lions kind of get stuck in a rock and a hard place, because you have the Bears this week with Montez Sweat, but then you also have the Packers next week, and they have Rashawn Gary. So it's right. Like, which edge player would you want, Taylor Decker for? Because depending on how that knee is holding up, it does kind of feel like maybe they won't be able to have him for both. They would probably have to pick one of these games to have him for.
I go Packers in that case, but yeah, it's that'll be something to watch, whether they have Brock Wright or Sam Laporta over there, a good amount like in line with Skipper to help him out. That's something to be wary, or just keeping Montgomery in at pass pro and chipping. Montgomery got a heck of a chip last week. If y'all have seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But he lit old boy up, and then
and in a week where you may not have Taylor Decker, this may just be a good opportunity to just do what you were talking about, where recognizing that the Bears are weak against the run,
shove a football up their nose.
It becomes an old school, just street fight.
Yep, I'm for it, because they're not built to hang with the Lions in a rock fight like that. So not at all.
All right. So with that said, let's jump over to the offense. And yeah, like we said in the beginning of this video, we even said in our last video, it's going to be a heavy focus on Caleb Williams, because this is the quarterback that, again, for a lot of Lions fans, if you haven't turned on any of their games, this is your first time seeing him. And it's been a very mixed bag. We've heard about Jaden Daniels being talked about as one of, offensive rookie of the year. Bo Nix is starting to get some of that chatter as well. But Caleb Williams was the guy coming into this draft class, and there hasn't been a lot of chatter. And Morgan, there's a number of different reasons why that is, right? And so what we're going to do when we look at some of these plays from Caleb Williams, we're going to look at the good stuff that he does, and we're going to look at some bad stuff, because that's literally what it's like watching him play quarterback. It's this roller coaster of things where he does things that wows you, and then he does some things that you kind of scratch your head on, and it's like part of it's like, okay, maybe these are just some rookie jitters, but then there's other things that's like, well, he was also making these mistakes in college, and he seems to not have really broken loose from some of those. So let's go ahead and get started with the positive. And the positive is the dude's arm can be absolutely mind blowing. He can absolutely throw this thing in a way that like it'll make you catch your breath.
Yeah, and like it's a like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, however you want to phrase it, right? Williams went number one overall for a reason, like many reasons, and this is one of them. Like this is late. Like the easiest way to say this, like he threw this late, and he barely fitted in there. If 43 from Minnesota didn't look like such a non-athlete there, that's probably at least a PBU. Like if you throw that against the Lions, and that's Brian Branch or Kirby or Meek or whoever down there, that's going to be a pick. It's just a bad play on Minnesota's part there. Their defense has kind of started to look a little holy here lately too. And I'm not talking about with the Lord. I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, like this is just this is late, but it's a testament to his arm talent because he still fits it in there. You know what I mean? Like this throw's got to be like once that receiver puts his foot in the ground and he gets into like that needs to be out. He pats the ball one more time and then throws it. Crazy.
Yeah, this is again if you play receiver and if you play quarterback, like you've heard it being taught to you, like, hey, the minute he like before he even comes out of his break, so before he even gets his head around, that ball needs to be there. And Keenan Allen gets a good few number of steps after that, and then this ball gets there. And like you said, Morgan, without that level of arm talent, that's a pick probably going the other direction.
Yeah, that's the fact that he fit that in there. When you watch that on tape, and especially even from the other angle too, like that one shows you the aerial view, but you kind of see him in the pocket and he does that extra tap. And that's all when quarterbacks talk about timing so much and people are like, what are they talking? Like it's that quick, like that little difference in time is being on time and or having the ball go the other way and you're having a defensive tackle try to baptize you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's right there.
So that's a good example of Caleb Williams, right? There's a little bit of a critique, like, hey, the timing needs to get a little bit better, and trust me, we're going to touch on that again later. But the timing needs to be a little bit better. But at the same time, the arm talent is able to help him overcompensate for some of those other minor things that would probably like doom another quarterback. A bad thing that Caleb Williams has a tendency of doing, and this is something that I think he'll just have to learn as he gets more reps in the NFL, is just knowing when to give up on a play, right? At USC, I think he became so accustomed, not just USC, but also at Oklahoma, became so accustomed to the like, hey, I can just string these plays out forever. And eventually I will out athlete the defender that's trying to get the sack. And eventually somebody will get open and I'm going to make this ridiculous, sideline throw that's going to end up in a touchdown. That's not going to happen in the NFL.
Yeah, you got to pick your battles, man. This is where Jared Goff is excellent. Just throwing it in the dirt or putting it in the second row. It's first down for the Bears here. So it's a sprint out. They're trying to condense the field for him, like make it easier for him to look at because it's the red zone, tight quarters. You guys all know that. And I'm sure other people have heard you talk about it, but so much of what Caleb Williams did at USC was out of structure. And what we mean by that is like scramble drill type stuff to simplify it. Where the play is broken down and he's looking and he's, receivers are just trying to stay with him and stay in relationship with him. You gotta operate within structure in the NFL, man. Athletes are, like you said, Miko, too good. You're not going to be able to embarrass this guy out here on the edge. And is that Van Ginkel?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's another reason why that's not gonna happen. It's Van Ginkel of all people. Like that's not the guy that you're gonna.
Not there, buddy. You got to pick and choose. Put that thing, like you said earlier, put it at DJ Moore's feet, or put it since you're in the red zone. Put that thing in the goalpost, like because they're not going to throw that. So, in terms of intentional grounding,
and so like I said, like that's a good mix between like rookie jitters, but at the same time, again, we're 12 weeks into the NFL season. Like Caleb Williams has to start to be able to make these types of decisions because that's only a 1 yard loss, but if that becomes a pattern of behavior, like that's how you get like early in the season. I believe it was against Tennessee. Like he had a play where it's like, hey, that play's dead. Get rid of the football. And I think he went backwards for like 10 yards. And it's like, it took a sack. And it's like, you just can't do those types of things in the NFL.
That's a drive killer, guys. Like you guys hear, people talk about that all the time, right? Like a drive killer, whether it's like a penalty or taking a sack like that when it's just really not necessary. Sometimes taking a sack is a good thing. That's what I want to get that out there, because sometimes it's better to take a sack rather than throw a ball into danger, right? Where it could be
Yeah.
intercepted and that's a turnover. So you got to pick and choose, but yeah, it's a drive killer. It gets you off schedule, and this Bears offense, with the way they don't run the ball effectively, they're not one that can afford to be off schedule. The Lions like to be on schedule, but they can get off because they have playmaker after playmaker to get
Mm-hmm.
chunk yardage if they need to, but the Bears don't really have that going right now. And so much of it, like you said, Miko, is just Caleb Williams, the ebbs and the flows. But it's just going to happen with a young quarterback.
Yep, absolutely. So let's go to another highlight of Caleb Williams. And this is something that you were pointing out to me before we even started looking at the tape, which is that like they do run a lot of quick game stuff with Caleb Williams, trying to get the ball out of his hands quickly so that he can basically get it to his receivers and they start to do something downfield. And this is another similar play to the last one. Like, again, putting a lot of heat on this pass to be able to get it past the defender.
Yeah, because this is right up the seam. So it's something that all quarterbacks, I'm assuming, love to throw this, because you're not having to place it out wide. You're able to just have a vapor trail coming off that thing and spin it. And he had to, because again, it probably could have been thrown a little earlier, like
Yep.
right now, boom, boom, boom. And then it's a little late. And then the safety, I don't know who that is from Minnesota. My eyes aren't good enough, but yeah, it was just a touch late. So it's not necessarily a dangerous ball. Like, it's probably just getting a bit, it's 24. Is that Gilmore? Old Stefan?
No, Gilmore's, I think, like number 2, number 1. He's on the outside, I believe.
No, yeah, you're right. 24 is Bynum, the one
Yeah.
that's Jameer's son. Okay. That's who that is. But yeah, that's just it's a good throw. It's another example of the S tier arm talent that this man has. Because
Mm-hmm.
make no mistake about it, if he doesn't make it in the NFL, it's not going to be for lack of talent. It's just going to be some of these bad habits that he's building, like being late, and some of these sacks. Like, he's been sacked 44, which is, I think, the highest in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. That's a pretty crazy rate. And
Yeah.
that clock speeds up, and and for him, it needs to speed up the right way, not the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? Where he gets happy feet and bails out of a clean pocket. You see that sometimes too on tape. You're like, what are you doing?
Actually, that's a good point, because that's literally what we're going to see in the next play, where it's like, hey, there's, again, understanding what your offense is, understanding like timing and how to get through your progressions. Because in a play like this one, Morgan, there's 2 receivers that are going to go out and run a route. You have to pick one of them. And he doesn't, not only does he not pick one, he misses the guy that's actually wide open just to settle for a 2 to 3 yard gain on a scramble. Like, Roma Dunze is wide open. And if he hits him at the 30-yard line, like, he's possibly going to have enough head of steam to maybe score.
Yeah, it's at least a big play, right? Like, and this is a good play from Chicago. So it's a max protect. And what I mean by that is, like Miko said, only 2 guys went out for a pass, right? To be a receiver. So you have Caleb and then the 2 receivers, and your 8 people stay in to protect. And it's actually, who's that 4? Is that Swift? It's not a terrible job. Not a great job, but not a terrible job. Gets him on the ground. But yeah, it's designed well, because the receiver that's already up there, I don't know who that is. I can't see. DJ Moore, maybe. He's running a for love of the game route, because he's trying to occupy the eyes of that safety over there. And yeah, like you said, he needs to rip this, get it out. There's only so much to look at. This is another example of Chicago trying to not give him too much to look at and make things. It's first down. Like, this is something that you want to execute on, because you're running up. This is something you scheme up. Like
Yeah.
a max protect play action. The Lions do this too. They take shots out of it. Sometimes the JMO shot plays are out of personnel packages like that. So yeah, it's another bad example.
Yeah, and it's tough to know without knowing like the offense itself, but like you would think, and you and I were talking about this, like you would think that a play like that where, you would work outside in instead of inside out. And so you possibly have Caleb Williams there looking for the big play, because he knows that like, hey, DJ Moore's going to run this deep curl. This would be great if I could hit him there. But in doing that, not having your eyes where they're supposed to be, you miss Roma Dunze basically probably still being able to pick up that same amount of yardage that you would have got if you had hit DJ Moore. So that's, again, an aspect of just not going through the process the right way. This next play is another example of what we talked about in the red zone, which is not knowing when to give up on a play And this one turns into a much worse sack and actually ends up with them having to punt out of this series.
Yeah, and you hate this as like a play caller, right? Because you like that last one, that was something you practiced all week, you worked on it, and then you pull it out and you're like, all right, hopefully we can get a little chunk for this, and then you gotta just throw it over your shoulder. It's done. But yeah, this is another bad one, man. This needs to get out right here. DJ Moore, somebody over there to Swift, anyone. Like that's if I'm the OC, that's what the OC's up there. They're, for those of you that don't know, the communication shuts off at 15 seconds on the play clock. So I'm sure coordinators, like whether it's Ben Johnson behind his play sheet or if you're up in the booth, you're like, get it out, and then you take a 7-yard sack. And this, I don't know what down this was. Or you said this was third.
I think this was second, and I think it turned it into like third and long.
3rd and 17 or something. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is, like we talked about, drive killer, man. And then you're giving the ball back to Minnesota, and it's not good complementary football, and it's a big reason as to why Chicago's 4-7.
Exactly. And again, it's understanding your own offense. You have 3 wide receivers to your left. You have the running back going out to the right by himself. Well, the running back and the tight end. So you have 2 options. If you're going to go to the right, it should either be to the running back, or if you have enough time to come back, it probably should be to DJ Moore, which is why I kind of like circled him on this play. Is like he's more open if you're trying to go to a second read than Cole Kmet is in this situation. But being completely honest, Morgan, like I'm kind of with you on your first point where it's like this either needs to go to Swift or it needs to go to the sideline. Like it just needs to get out because you don't have the progression. You don't have the time to be able to go all the way from the right of the field all the way back left.
Yeah, and that's a good point too with the DJ Moore thing because I never played quarterback, but that's their line of sight, right? That's why quarterbacks like throwing between the hashes into the middle of the field. It's because they can see really well. And if I were a quarterback, I'd like to see what I'm throwing at too, just so I can be sure. But yeah, to your point, DJ Moore's right there in his line of sight. And to me, this is just me thinking, but I'm sure this is where their heads start getting messed up, right? As a young quarterback, and you take so many hits and you turn the ball over and you're sacked 44 times in 11 games. He's getting sacked 4 times a game.
That's insane.
Math there. That's tough, man. That's a tough way to operate. Do you think if that's 4 drives killed per game, and that's how that adds up, man?
And some of them are self-inflicted too. Like it's not even like, again, the offensive line isn't doing him any favors, but some of these are self-inflicted.
Yeah, and that's where they're, as an offensive lineman, that I'm sure they turn around. Like we've all seen that clip of the other team. Was it New England picking him up off the ground?
Yeah,
that's a tough look because if you ever notice when Goff gets sacked, Panay's back there, Frank, whoever, someone's back there to pick him up. But yeah, as an offensive lineman, you get pissed. Like I've seen a lot of the times he drifts because he's a good athlete and he drifts in the pocket. What I mean by that is tackles, you have like a set, they're trying to run you off. Like when you see tackles run edge rushers off past the quarterback and the quarterback's able to step up. That's the end goal as a tackle, right? You're going to have that happen sometimes. But what happens with him and other quarterbacks, like Russell Wilson used to do this a lot too in Seattle, they drift in the pocket deep, deep, deep. And then the offensive tackle tries to run the end off, and then he ends up getting sacked. And that's where your tackles are going to get pissed off at you because they're like, dang it, that counts towards my statistics, if you will. But really, that's on you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like those are things that I think the Lions will be able to like take advantage of. Like we talked about it earlier this week. Like they may have some injuries on the defensive side. They may not have Carlton Davis. Why did I feel like I said that wrong for some reason? But yeah, they won't have Carlton Davis on Thursday. And they're obviously without Hutch. They're obviously without Anzalone. So there's some pieces missing on this defense. But when you have a quarterback like this, that's going to ebb and flow. If you're Aaron Glenn, like it's a message of consistency. You want your unit to just play consistent football throughout from start to finish. Shut down the run game, make them one-dimensional, and make Caleb Williams have to hold the ball for an extra beat or two because he's going to default to trying to extend a play. Right? If his first or second read isn't there, he's going to panic. And if you can hold up well in the back end, and eventually that defensive line can get there, and Aleem's been playing out of his mind, this could be a really good day for the Lions defense.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. And Chicago's offensive line is getting healthier. Like they should have Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, back at their tackles. But Aleem and like Levi and DJ Reader and them have been playing so well on the interior. That could make things tough for
Mm-hmm.
Caleb too. And then it's going to be allowed. I don't anticipate a ton of Bears fans making the journey to Detroit this year.
I was gonna say when your team's 4-7, you probably want to stay at home.
Yeah, and I'm sure that then tickets are ungodly expensive.
That too.
So I'm sure that's not drawing a ton of people to come like watch their team play in Detroit. But yeah, I do think that it could be another really big game for Aleem and Levi and DJ Reader and the defensive tackles, because if they can affect the game on the interior, like make them one dimensional, go ahead and shut Swift down or whoever's back there toting the rock. And that's when, you get them in obvious passing situations, and the volume's going to get turned up. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just tough. As y'all know, it's going to be tough for a rookie quarterback to be in that environment, hopefully. So I think that's the key to the game, man. Run the heck out of the rock if you're the Lions. Shove some footballs up Chicago's nose, and then just go from there. Everything will take care of itself.
Yeah, I'm expecting this to be, again, while I do expect the Lions to win, and I do expect it to be pretty decisively, I do expect it to kind of be similar to last week's game, where there's a little bit of like some defensive like battles going back and forth. I think I put my score prediction in today for like 24-13 Lions, just because I think like Caleb Williams does have the arm talent. They're going to get some chunk plays in, especially if you don't have your two starting corners out there. Like there's some of those might happen. And I think that's enough to kind of get them into scoring range. But I do think the Bears are going to self-destruct more often than they won't. And I think that will be essentially part of the downfall of them, is that they will start to crumble at times, and the Lions will continue to just be steady like Dan Campbell asked them to be, right? Be steady, get to the fourth quarter, and basically bury a team there.
Yep. Take them out into the deep water and drown them, like you said. Shout out, Dan.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So that's pretty much going to do it for this week's film study. Like I said, it's a shorter week, and it's basically going to be right back at this next week, because basically the Lions have the Packers on a Thursday game. So the schedule is going to be a little wonky, but definitely hang tight with us. If this is your first time at the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Those things help out the channel immensely, and it makes it so much easier for you to find our content and also be notified when we decide to go live over here on YouTube. If you need any more additional content before now and Thursday, you can always check out pridedetroit.com. There's new articles being uploaded over there all the time. And yeah, it's just a great way of supporting our writers and continue to stay informed about the Detroit Lions. So with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.